Hey, welcome to worstoftutorials.com. My name is Brian. I'm joined today by
Bradford
Mitchell. We are going to show you a piece of gear that is really cool and extremely useful that I think many of you might not know that much about. It is made by, who else? It's Worst Tutorials, Will Sledge Effects.
Yes.
WillSledgeEffects.com. The guy makes really awesome stuff. And it's this long rectangular box that you see in the shot. And it is called a true bypass looper. Now, the word looper is used for a lot of different things. What do you think of when you hear looper, Bradford?
It depends on the context.
Yes,
I get
it
confused.
does.
Sometimes I think of one of those nice little functions that let you record what you play and then play
Oh
over.
yeah, kind of like the Ditto looper that I have on the Worst Tutorials board.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is one thing that a looper is. It like loops your sound over and over. This is not one of those. This is a true bypass looper. Also, not to be confused with like a programmable MIDI
switching
thing. Yeah. I don't know. That Disaster Area makes those. And other people, obviously. They're cool. But what this is a series of switches that just turn stuff on and off.
Yep.
And so it's useful for a variety of things. One, if you notice Bradford's pedal board, how different is this than the last time you did a pedal board run through mid last year?
The only thing that's the same is the Klon and the tuner.
Yeah.
This is not my volume pedal.
Yeah, we switched out the volume pedal. But we don't need to go into that. But if you look at Bradford's board and Bradford's foot here, you might notice that there's a wide variety, a large array of pedals on this board.
Indeed.
And he can access now most of those pedals through this one little strip of buttons.
Yes.
Which is nice because you can make things very compact. All right, so we're just going to take a moment and explain to you what this true bypass looper is. You probably noticed that there are a number of switches. This one has 5 switches on the front of it. It actually has 5 loops, but not all of these control a loop. And when you look at the back, this is where your ins and outs are. So you can see you have a in and an out. And that's where you would either you can plug your guitar into this, wherever you want the signal to start, you plug in, and you can come out, you can go straight to the amp, you can go to whatever pedals you don't want in the looper. And then each one has a S and an R. That's a send, return, send, return, send, return. S1R1 is linked to this because it's right on top of it. S2R2 is linked to this. S3R3 is linked to this. S4R4 is linked to this. So how it works is you plug your pedal in, you take the send of the loop into the input of your pedal and the output of your pedal to the return, and then you turn your pedal on and off with that button. It's pretty simple, really.
It is.
And Bradford, what's going on? Explain to us the PS and the PR.
So this is a passive send and return. So you could use this for a couple different things. Will mentioned how it could be used for a volume pedal. So essentially, this is your chain order. So this could be, in our case, vibrato, drive, volume, drive, delay. So you could do that. Maybe you realize you get this and you don't need this anymore. You can patch it together and it'll just keep going. And now, a reminder: there's no switch for this one. Whatever's in here is going to be in the chain.
Always on. Yep.
So you could especially like if you got so I have a distortion pedal from JHS that has the kilt. It has a on and it has a boost. And so if I wanted to throw that in there, I could keep it off to the side of the board, and it's in the middle of this chain. And maybe I wanted to throw another dirt pedal in there too. It's going to be it'll keep pedals in this order that I want, but it's not going to need to rely on a switch from the looper itself.
Yeah.
And so this is good if you want to if you got some noisy pedals and old pedals like we talked about, maybe that you want to put in a loop so you can stomp on the switches instead of the actual pedal. And then this will allow you to keep that signal flow you actually want. Because when you go into here and out of here, that's the order of everything. So,
that's right.
So anything that's in this is going to be in that order. So you can't do some drives here and delay and reverb and whatever. You can't do drives here, delay and reverb, and then like put your volume pedal at the end of the chain. Like you could, but if you throw it at the end of the chain, it's at the end of the chain.
That might not be what you want.
If you want it in the middle of the chain, you got to put it in the passive or in its own loop or whatever.
Yeah.
So
and then this looper has sort of a special feature that Will made for us. This button right here bypasses all of the loops. So when you hit this button, the input is patched directly to the output.
There's a cable. We saw it.
Yeah, there's a cable that just runs from here to here and out it goes. So it bypasses all the loops, including the passive loop. But he can make them with whatever configuration you want. You can have a, you can have a tap tempo in here. You could have a buffer in here. You could have a. It'd be kind of neat is to actually put like a circuit in here. I bet he would do that if you had a small circuit.
You could probably put a slim drive.
Maybe a slim drive, just boom on.
It's already in there.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, so that is sort of the mechanics of how a true bypass looper works, and why they have all the ins and the outs in the back. And
they're a little intimidating. It's okay.
They are, but you know what? It's kind of like a soundboard. Like if you look at a soundboard, say it's 16 channels, you see all these buttons and faders and stuff, but it's just 16 versions of the same one thing. And when you think about it that way, it's a little less intimidating. Yeah. It's just 5 of the same thing, basically. Yeah. Here. It's all right. We're going to get to plugging stuff into this and showing you how it works. So what we've done is this cable runs to the input of this Behringer vibrato, and then the output runs to the return of this loop. And then that button turns the vibrato on and off.
So with obviously with volume. So here, regular dry signal.
Yep, and the vibrato's off. Now it's on.
The vibrato is on as its own pedal, but it's not in the chain. And now we're going to introduce it to the chain as a better way to kind of, I guess, say it. So that's good because this Behringer vibrato is really neat, but this Behringer pedal I got for $18 and it sounds like
They're cheap, yeah.
They're cheap and they make noise. And so that's why I like putting this in the loop. Now, I have it first because I'd rather hit my signal before it hits the distortion or overdrives. That's preference. But that is a brilliant reason. That's one of many reasons to use this. Now, my second switch here, I have the Will Sledge Effects Slim Drive up top. Then I threw the Klon in this loop, just because that's where I wanted to put it. That's really it. And then here is the delay, the DD500. Will even make a way that you can throw in a buffer. So when you turn off this example, we don't have one. But when you're playing here, you hear the delay. He has an option that if you play and then cut it off, they keep going, but then the delay keeps ringing out and keeps feedbacking, if you will. But what you're playing is not. So that's a good option if you like it, but we have it just cuts it dry. So right now, it's not doing anything. But if I turn it on, off, kind of hear it.
They're in the back. We heard them. They're back there.
They're there.
Yeah.
They're gone now.
They were now.
When we mentioned it, they were still there.
Yeah, so Will has, if you go to willsledgeeffects.com and go to his looper section, he makes a lot of these loopers. It's one of his more popular products that he makes. You can have, it's just like endless possibilities of what he can do. And I would suggest to you, if this is something you'd like, if you'd like to get some, if you have a lot of pedals and you want to get them sort of out of the way and have what you actually step on right in front of you, very neatly organized, these things are great. He can do things for you, like he can make one of them be a Strymon favorite switch. He can put that in.
And it'll be connected to the same box, so you don't have to have something separate.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to... that's the big reason.
Yeah. He can make one a tap tempo, which is very cool. So one of these buttons can be a tap tempo, and he can put a different switch in it so that it's silent. And I believe he can make multiple outputs from that, because I have one of his triple taps. And so if you hit, it'll send to 3 different pedals and sync all the tempos. So you can put a tap tempo in there. He can put, actually with a passive loop, you can use it one of several ways. You can have it be a tuner out if you want. So you just put the tuner in the loop, and it's always on. The far right switch is a bypass switch.
Yeah.
So it bypasses all of the loops. So why don't we demonstrate that? Turn some stuff on.
So here's a good example. Let's say you want to have some of the vibrato. You want to have some delay. But then you're going to go straight to a dry sound, for example. This is one of many reasons you could do this. So you're playing.
So that just completely bypassed.
It goes from the input right to the output.
Yep.
And Will also mentioned that a good reason for this is if something seems to be not working right, that's a good way to test. And then if you still get signal, then... Well, maybe it's one of your patch cables, which we were realizing earlier.
We had a faulty patch cable.
I had a faulty patch cable. I don't want to talk about it.
Sad vibrato for Bradford's faulty patch cable.
Yes.
All right.
So another good reason to use one of these. I have this wonderful Full Drive 2. It's pre-MOSFET. I prefer these personally. This switch is a little faulty. It's a little shoddy. And while Will could in fact fix this for me if I let him have it, this is beneficial because if I can get it on and it stays on, which it's fine, but the pressure I add to turning on and off sometimes during a set, it may jiggle it too much. So long story short, a pedal with a faulty switch or one that's not working too well, I can put it in a loop as well, and that way when it's always on, all I gotta do is introduce it to the chain by hitting a loop, for example. Now you do have to have a lot more cables.
Yes,
so
you do.
That's not always intuitive.
That is one thing that you have to do. So for every single pedal that you do, so you run into the looper and out of the looper, and then for each switch that you want to access, for each pedal you want to put in the chain, you have to have a send and a return to and from the looper. So it's different than just going one pedal to the next pedal to the next pedal. You have to have more cable. But in the long run, Bradford mentioned this earlier, like if you have, say you have 8 or 9 pedals, which is a lot, but a lot of people run that many pedals. That's a lot of cable because you have all the cables between them, plus you have all the cable inside the pedals themselves, the signal flow. It ends up being a lot of length of cable, and a lot of people get really into like buying a buffer. So because you have these long cable runs. With a true bypass looper, whenever that pedal is not on, you're not running through any of those cables. It just bypasses it.
It goes from very minuscule amount of cabling.
Yeah.
Instead of, I mean, most people's patch cables are at least a few inches passing through. So
yeah, so you in the long run, when you don't have when you don't have the loops turned on, you're bypassing all that cable length, which will actually preserve your signal and give you a little more pristine sound. Some players are more finicky about that than others. Personally, for me, if it sounds good, it's good. But it really can make a difference in your tone if you use a lot of pedals, and if you use some older or not as high quality pedals that are noisy.
And, well,
you don't hear that, like the Behringer. You don't hear the noise. Why don't we do this, Bradford? Why don't you just play us a little something, turn pedals on and off, and use the pedals in the looper, and this will kind of demonstrate to you how easy it is to access these pedals because you don't have to be reaching all over your pedal board.
Yep.
All right, cool. So what we had there was delay went on and off, vibrato went on and off.
The delay cut dry which I wanted in that instance. Yeah. Sometimes that's nice, but to let it trail. But
and if you didn't want trails, you could have just turned it off on the pedal itself.
Right. And if you wanted,
or if you wanted trails.
Yeah. So it doesn't affect the way the pedal's used exactly. So right now, I just cut it dry automatically. And when I just cut the pedal off itself, they still trail. So if you want, it's nice because sometimes I like that. Like it sounds like it's wet, and then all of a sudden it just dies right there. It's kind of like a vacuum. I like that sometimes. It's fun. It's different.
Yeah, so you can still use the pedals, the way that they're typically used with the looper. It really can just be extremely flexible in how you set up your signal flow, how you set up your pedals. Another thing you can do with it that's nice is if you want to change the order of pedals. You can have the pedals laid out on your board, and all you do is, like, say you wanted the vibrato after the drive. I don't know, is that a thing people do?
It is. Absolutely.
Okay. So if you wanted your vibrato after the drive, all you have to do is unplug the send and return from the first loop, where the vibrato is, and just shuffle it around. You don't have to actually change the order of your cables.
Yeah.
The order of your pedals.
Which can be quicker, which is super nice. It's it's a lot better, and also it saves the jacks on your pedals too, if you're worried about that as well. Yeah. Because that can wear out cables, that can wear out the jacks.
Yeah.
So.
All right, what else can we say about Will Sledge Effects loopers?
If you think to some extent that something like this in some way, shape, or form would be helpful, if you are wanting to look at getting something like this, get up with Will.
Yeah.
Tell him, this is what I do and this is what I'd rather not do. I tap dance way too much on Sundays. I can't reach pedals I need. Tapping tempo for delay and turning reverb on and off. Like, whatever you may be facing, if this seems like something you need, reach out to Will. Send him a picture of your board. Tell him your goals and what you want to do. And they're reasonably priced, first off. But he's also giving you personal customer service.
That's
and
right.
willing to get you something and tell you exactly what you need. He's not going to try to get you to buy the most expensive thing. He's going to get you what you need. That's why he wants to work with us. He also wants to help worship leaders, worship guitar players figure out what they need most.
Yeah.
So possibilities are endless. Whatever you want to do.
We actually talked to him on the phone today. He FaceTimed with us.
Because we were having issues.
Because we were having an issue. And I texted him. I was like, Will, something's not right. And he FaceTimed me right away. It was like right in the middle of the day.
And that was the cable thing.
And that was the cable. It wasn't the pedal.
fault.
But we asked him a couple questions because we had a different volume pedal in there. And he was like, oh yeah, that volume pedal, sometimes it doesn't work as well with the loop. And then he's like, if you want to use that, just send it back to me. And I'll put a buffer in it, and it will preserve the signal better, so it'll work with that volume pedal. So you really don't get that level of customer service if you buy just a looper from a store somewhere, because you can buy them. But the cool thing about working with Will is he will completely tailor it just for you. We actually had the guts of this thing open, trying to figure out what was going on before we realized it was our cable.
Beautiful soldering.
I can't tell you how well made. Well, I can tell you how well made this thing it was. It was awesome. He not only is it just like the soldering is great, the quality of the components is great, but like he uses like super glue kind of material and goops all like the really intricate connections and stuff. They kind of get solidified in like an epoxy, so they're not gonna break. There's no movement in there. You don't have to worry about this thing breaking down on you. And if you do, you just let Will know, and the guy will fix it for you.
He will take care of you.
His customer service is outstanding, and the quality of his work, all handmade, all hand wired stuff. So that's a true bypass looper. If you have any questions about them, because I've posted on like Facebook and whatnot on the Worship Tutorials page that we have one of these, we're going to demo it, and I immediately had some questions about how you use them. If you have questions about them, please comment in the YouTube video here, or better yet would be to do it on worshiptutorials.com, and I can answer them. If I can't answer them, I can actually forward them to Will. So Will and I have hung out a few times. He's a really cool guy. He's a worship leader. So if I don't know the answer, I can get in touch with Will, and he can probably answer them for you as well. This has been Brian and Bradford from worshiptutorials.com, WillSledgeEffects.com, true bypass loopers. He can make them in whatever configuration, however big or small you want them. Check them out for sure. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. You know, I didn't play this thing. Apparently I just need it because I don't know what to do with my hands.
My hands.